airstrikes, killing of Khamenei. So I'm not against war. I believe generally in the just war heuristic. So, in other words, if we must go to war, or country must go to war, they should run it through that filter. And I would argue pretty strenuously that most wars not only weren't run through that filter, they wouldn't have made it through the filter, in other words. They wouldn't have been justified. They weren't justified, but they weren't even attempted to be justified. And I'm not a liberal. I'm not a progressive. I'm not against anything simply because Trump is attached to it. That's a ridiculous heuristic. It's a ridiculous way to decide what you support and what you don't support. I stick to anti-war principles. Again, not against it. I'm not a idealistic utopian peacenik. But what I do want to point out is, A, there can be savage motives that are implicated. See, phenomena are multi-causal. So you could be like there could be motives mixed in there because there's a lot of people and an action like going to war that represents the movements of nations and interest groups and power bases. There's going to be like a mixture of motives, both individually and collectively, depending on which collective we're talking about, which individuals we're talking about. And a bunch of individuals' motives are going to stack on each other, right? And so there can be motives in there like free the Iranian people, whatever that means. Like there could, in other words, like a relatively pure and good motive. But there are definitely sadistic, controlling, let's shoot bombs, that drop bombs and shoot missiles at people motives. And behind that, every war, like it's undeniable. Like we're human beings, and human beings are evolving. When human beings have access to those capacities, and we select people at the highest levels, unfortunately, because sociopathy, for example, kind of makes for like good surgeons, and it makes sometimes good for executives, right? We should probably screen for them and not do that, but we haven't found a way to do that. The other thing is, I saw this one guy talking about, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is where the individual supporters of war's motives can turn dark. This guy's sitting there like attacking the liberals, saying they're stupid, saying, it can't be about Israel because it's clearly about China. And first of all, it could be about both. Like, why can't it be about both? And he's calling people stupid, and he's like dropping in all this like modern slang, like FAFO, F around and find out, like all cutesy, like this is like people died.